Hello, my name is Madison Murphy, and this is my PowerPoint on the brain for my Psychology 102 class. To start off, we're going to talk about the lobes of the brain. The lobes of the brain are going to include the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. The frontal lobe basically has to do with decision making, problem solving, and planning, so these are basically like all activities. The parietal lobe is concerned with the reception and the processing of sensory information from the body. The occipital lobe is primarily just the vision, so the inputs and outputs of the vision. The temporal lobe is having to do with memory, emotion, hearing, and even some aspects of language. I also found that there is sometimes a fifth lobe. It's called the insula, and it's located deep inside of the temporal lobe. And over here, this is a picture of all the four lobes I just described. The second thing we'll be talking about is the limbic system of the brain. So there's three key functions of the limbic system. These are emotions, memories, and arousal. The limbic system is also located in the forebrain, and it's underneath the cerebral cortex, and one of its major functions that it's also located with is called the thalamus. The thalamus serves as the relay center for the brain where most senses are routed for processing. And over here, this is the limbic system described in a picture. So the third thing I'll be talking about is the brainstem. As you can see before I get started, over here this is the thalamus. This is what I just talked about. So as I just said, it serves as the relay center of the brain where most senses are routed for processing. So that's the thalamus right there. But to get back to the brainstem, the top part of the spinal cord is what connects with the brainstem, which controls the main features of life. So all the functions of the brainstem would include like the flow of messages throughout the body, breathing, swallowing, heart rate, blood pressure, literally everything. So I also said that the brainstem also controls all of the little automatic functions in your body, such as breathing, and then that way you don't have to think about taking a breath every second. So that way your heart is just beating because your brain is telling it to beat, instead of you actually thinking like, oh my god, like my heart needs to beat, so that's how that works. We also in this picture have the medulla right here, right above this word that I cannot pronounce. The medulla is the base of the brainstem. It controls the autonomic functions and relays nerve signals between the brain and the spinal cord. We also have the cerebellum right here, and it doesn't necessarily initiate movement, but it does contribute to coordination, precision, and accurate timing. And then the last thing we will talk about in this PowerPoint would be the subcortical and cortical brain areas. So some of the subcortical areas would be the hypothalamus, which is for feeding, fleeing, mating, fighting, and homeostasis. We also have the cerebellum, which I just talked about, which is involved in motor control. The forebrain, which is I also talked about, which is the largest part of the brain that was located in the limbic system. The cortical areas would include the Broca's area, which is a region of the brain associated with speech. The primary auditory cortex, it can deal with language switching, so I found that one really interesting because, for example, this would be, since I primarily speak English, that's basically my only language, that would be me listening to somebody speak Spanish to me, or French, or any kind of other language, or me speaking that back to them. And then we also have the orbital frontal cortex, which is involved especially with social and emotional behavior. So up here is the cortical regions of the brain, and then in the middle area, the purple area, is the subcortical regions of the brain. And then I also have my works cited, and I hope that you enjoy this PowerPoint, and thank you.